have everything I need. I have everything I need to proceed and succeed. I have everything I need. I have everything I need. I have everything I need, yeah, to proceed and succeed.
Good afternoon, friends, family, loved ones, enemies, contributors, distractors. This is Kevin Lewis on The Blueprint. And this week's show is called Being Black in a White World. And there has to be a realization. First of all, it's good to be back. I'm glad to be back after taking off for Ramadan. And I think that it helps me to refresh my mind, refresh my energy to a certain extent, and come out of the cocoon ready to go. So the first show, I think, is going to pretty much set the precedence for the next shows that I'm going to have, no matter what they're about. But being black in the white world is about the realization of who we are and where we are in this country and in the world as a people. The only way that we can begin to concoct a reasonable plan with reasonable goals is to go about solving our problems, is to realize where we are and where we stand. I think other than that, anything that we try will be frivolous. Anything that we have been trying, to me, has been frivolous. If I'm looking at the results, it's a hard pill to swallow for any person to say that somebody else is in control, total control. It's a hard pill for us to swallow. It's a harsh reality that we must face, and it's a dire situation that we are actually in, and many of us don't even realize that we're in this dire situation, going through dire circumstances on a day-to-day basis. And then we wonder why we're going through these circumstances. And these type of situations, dire situations, they call for dire or drastic measures to correct our situation, if we are interested in correcting where we stand in this country and where we stand eventually in the world. And when I say that this is a white world, let me explain. This is the proof. If you look at all the superpowers, I believe it's like four countries that they consider superpowers in the world. The United States, one, Russia, China, and India is on the precipice, if not they are already a superpower. The United States, Russia, and China, there's different things that make them, or they have different qualities that qualify them to be superpowers. And one of the things that all of them have is a military, a strong military. The strongest militaries in the world. Also, their ability to create revenue for their own countries. They're leading the way in things like technology and things like this. This is what India is qualifying India to be a superpower. Is their technology, their IT services, and their space programs and things like this. They're on the scheduled pace to overtake China as far as the IT services and things that they do in the technical field. So out of all these countries, these four countries that are superpower, none of them are African. None of them sympathize with the needs of African nations or black nations or us in America. Not even America sympathizes with our plight. And we are in a country that is one of the superpowers. None of these countries are allies with black nations. If America today chose to attack black people, to turn on black people, there's nothing that we can do. Not only is there nothing that we can do, there's nothing that probably any of these other superpowers would do to come to our aid. They are not our allies or our friends. They will not step in to help. You may have countries here and there that may say they're going to boycott, they're going to do small things, but that's not going to stop the damage that's being done, because as a superpower, America will go on with business as usual without caring about one of these smaller countries that has little effect on the American lifestyle. If they had an effect, they should already have done things to try to affect the things that they needed to affect, to stop the things that we were going through, if they had our best interest in mind, and they had the ability to do that. That hasn't happened. I don't believe it will happen or can happen. But everything that we do, everything that we have, is controlled by someone outside of us. On a macrocosm, if you look at Africa, the continent, all the resources that Africa has, all the resources that is being exported from Africa, she controls none of the resources. She's not in total control of her own resources. In a microcosm, we here in America, Black America, we don't have the resources that we have are mainly us, our abilities, and we control none of the profit of that, or very little of that. If you look at the sports, we dominate sports. We play sports, but they own the teams. They own the leagues. All of the major leagues, they own them. We have great actors, talented actors, actresses, talented filmmakers, but they control Hollywood. They control the movie studios. We have great TV shows, TV stars. We create great series and whatever shows, but they control the networks. We make great music. We have great artists, the best artists in the world, in every genre, basically. But they control the music industry. We have brilliant minds, but they control the education system. We have our politicians, but they control the system. So they basically dominate and control our lives. This is systemic racism. This is what that means. There's a book called White Fragility. And it says, Why Is It So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo. And this book was published in 2018. And I recommend that that if you get a chance that you open the book, crack it open, look at it, read it. It's there's interesting things in there, and this is a white author that's talking about racism in America and why white people shun away from those conversations. And I would say that most of the time they don't understand racism. We let them get away with telling us what racism actually is, in a way that anybody could be racist. A black person could be racist, a Hispanic person, Asian person, whatever. Anybody could be racist, and that's not the case in America. When we speak racism, it's white supremacy racism. That's how Dr. Francis Cress Welsing would describe it, as white supremacy and racism. They go hand in hand, because the only people that have control in this country to control how you see things on a racial and a racial stance is white America. They control how the perception of race in this country. They can influence. We have our own religions, but they control how we see God. Like I said, they control what we learn and how we learn. They control the media. So when someone can control your livelihood, economics. They control your education. They control your religion. This is racism, and it is systemic in America, meaning it's in every fiber of this country. And in the book, to take that even further, in White Fragility, I was writing down some of the stats that she gave, that Robin DiAngelo gave. She said, and this is the time, this is around Trump's first presidency, how America stood at that time. She said in the Oval Office, it was 100% white. She said the Senate, which was the most diverse it had ever been up until that time, was 91% white. She said the House was 73% white. The governors was 98% white in America. The governors of our states was 98% white. The mayors were 88% white. Military advisors were 100% white. These are the people that advise the president, the strategies, and how we go about controlling the world, the rest of the world, and what countries we may attack or invade or do, or any military action. It was 100% white. The federal judges were 88% white. Police officers in this country were 80% white. Also, TV producers and directors were, I believe, 76% white. The people who decide what TV shows we see, they were 93% white. The books, the ones that decide what books are on the bestseller list and what books we should be reading, they were 90% white. The ones that tell us what news is going to be covered, the AP, when the AP comes out, which is the news, what happens all over, and the people that decide what's going to be on the news, they get this line of events that's happening and occurrences, like a ticker, and they decide what the news is going to be covered, so what we will actually see and what the anchors will talk about. Those people were 85% white. The music producers were 95% white. School teachers were 82% white. Full-time college professors was 84% white. NFL owners were 97% white. NBA owners were 98% white, although the players were 75% black. This is control, us being controlled without realizing that we are being controlled. It's systemic. It's all within the system. You have a certain race that is in control of everything that we see on a daily basis, everything we do on a daily basis. Most of us could sit here and talk about who owns the company that we work for. DEI did not exist in the strategic places of power in this country. When they talk about getting rid of DEI, that was just for the workers, the people in the lower positions. The people in the higher positions, there was no DEI for that. And this is how they control everything that we do on a day-to-day basis. None of our leaders have any idea on how to do anything other than work within this system to solve our problems. They don't know how to use any tool outside of the master's shed. And there's no tools in the master's shed that will help bringing down the master's house. I believe that was a quote. I'm paraphrasing. But this means that if you have a complaint, having a complaint and filing it with the business or the company or the industry that you have a complaint with, this is how we remain in the situations that we are in this country. If you can't think outside of the box, you remain within the box. It's subjective to the rules within the box. When someone comes along that can think outside of the box, then they label those people, the system labels those people radicals. And we are so twisted and intertwined and ruled by the system, we do the same thing. This person is sitting up here talking radical when all they're trying to do is teach us and talk to us outside the box. Now, I appreciate some of y'all that showed up. Lede Bishop, she said, welcome back. And Coretta, I appreciate you showing up. And Sarah Simpson Anderson, I appreciate you, sister. Greetings. Sakina, well, Alaikum Assalam, sister. I appreciate you showing up to this show. So this is how systemic racism has affected us. We don't have anyone that can think outside of the system. Even when they see something is wrong with the system, they don't know how to go about attacking the system. They don't know how to go about developing a plan to go against the system. But this is what we must do. We must think outside the box. When things get desperate, you start using desperate measures. And that's how we have to look at it if we want to change the things that are happening to us. If you want to go along with the system and go, like they'll tell you to go vote. You know, they'll tell you that our leaders, some of our leaders, whether they're political leaders or not, they call on the Democrats. The Democrats are supposed to be the good guys for black people, right? There's something called the Shirky principle. The Shirky principle is a concept of sociology. And what the Shirky principle says is basically any industry will prolong a problem in which it is the solution. This is what has been happening with the Democratic Party in America. As long as bigotry and hatred and all these things, racism that we label racism exists, which is a contradiction because it's all racism. Whether it's people doing things out of hate or they doing things for profit, basically you're being controlled. The whole system is a racist system. But as long any industry or group that is the solution of a problem or is seen as the solution of a problem will prolong that problem. This keeps them relevant. This keeps them relevant to us. The Democratic Party, when it had super control, when it had the POTUS and it had the House and the Senate, they did nothing to stop racism in this country. They can't do anything to stop racism in this country. That's too big of a task. They could do some things to combat it if they wanted to, but they did very little, and they still do very little. When they were just in power, they did very little, a minimum, just to say that they were doing something to combat racism. This turned a lot of people away from the Democratic Party. The realization that, we have voted for you from time to time. And as a party, you didn't dismantle the white supremacist groups in America like America once did with the black power groups, infiltrate them, whether it's the Nation of Islam or the Black Panther Party, or how they infiltrate these mosques and send agents in there, and anything that they deem as maybe a threat to their system or their power or the country, they infiltrate and they dismantle. And in the case of the Black Panther Party, they murder their leaders. They use the media to tell you a different story than what's actually happening, give you a different mindset on these people. They're radical, they're violent, they're militant. They told us this about Malcolm X. They painted a picture of him so that many of us saw him as radical coming up, or we were learning that he was. And same with, like I said, the Black Panther Party. And in the meantime, they're going about murdering them and using the media to justify the means in which they were doing the things they were doing. This government hasn't done that with the white supremacist countries. And white supremacist organizations within this country. There's been no takedown of the KKK or any of these Proud Boys or anything like that. Even when we had Democratic leadership, liberal leadership, if they were about our cause, then it seems like when they got in power that we mainly put them in, that they would take care of some of our issues, but we have no allies. They are prolonging the issue so that they can remain a solution. So when the elections come up, we're going to jump to them. And that's fine if we vote for them. I'm not saying we shouldn't vote for them. I'm saying, but we have to realize that they're prolonging it. They're not there to get rid of our problems. Our problem is systemic racism in this country. Our problem is systemic racism in this world. And we are riding the roller coaster. We gain a little progress, then we rapidly lose it whenever some other group get in office, take control of the Senate. The same things that we were doing and fighting to do, taking down statues, removing whom we deemed as racist individuals in parks or names of parks or, like I said, monuments and things like that. Now, this president came in office, he's doing the same thing with us. Y'all doing it to our people, we're going to do it to y'all people too. Y'all not going to have all these statues and it's crazy to think of it like that, but basically it's a tit for tat. That's what's basically happened. And anything that they give us or they allow us to have, they're able to take away. So it's not really ours. If the government is controlling it and it's is controlled by the government instead of the government building it and giving it to us to control, then all we're doing is riding a roller coaster. We have highs and we have lows. Sometimes we remain steady and then we'll have a high and we'll have a low. And at the end of the ride, we're doing the same thing again for decades, when that's not making progress. We're not making progress until we start putting a dent into some of these statistics that I gave you. When we start putting a dent into the school teachers, the professors, even we have our HBCUs, something that we may be able to control, but actually the government gives them funding that keeps them afloat, barely keeps them afloat. And because we're not doing our part in keeping them afloat. Even though most of our black dentists come from HBCUs, most of our black attorneys come from HBCUs, black doctors and things like this. But we have been so screwed up in our mentality with this system that we don't support our HBCUs. So they rely on the government, which is mostly controlled by white people, and what we see as a white agenda. They're not going to empower our schools. We have to empower our own schools. We have to empower our own kids and empower our own education. And that should be our plan and our goal. There's something else that's called the Peter Principle. This is another concept in sociology. The Peter Principle states that in any hierarchy, the components of the hierarchy will, in an industry or business or whatnot, the components of a hierarchy will only go as far as their incompetency. Not as far as their competency, but as far as their incompetency. What you don't know is what's going to hold you back. Basically, this is what the Peter Principle is stating. If it's a business, you're going to elevate yourself in the business up to the point of your incompetency. You don't know how to go any further. You don't know what it takes to go any further. You don't even know who to know to get any further. Once you run out of what you know or how to get the things that you know about, that's the ceiling that you will be in, your incompetency. This is what I submit to you that we are at in this country. We are staying at a level of our incompetency. We don't know which way to go. We don't know what it is we can do. We can see the problem, wanting to cure the problem, hating the problem, the eagerness you may have to get your justice, your freedom, your equality, whatever it is, words you want to use. It's only going to, wanting is not enough. Your desire is not enough. You have to be competent to the point of knowing what it's going to take. And we actually are not competent to that level. So this should create an insatiable appetite. Not to go over what we already know, which is fine. Go over what the past, what they did in the past, and the strategic measures that were taken to take our organizations down, or to cripple our organizations, or to hinder our movements and things like that. But also think outside of the box. You have to find a way. You have to seek a way. You have to be hungry for a way to get what you want to get done in this country. With the obstacles, you have to know the obstacles are there. This is why I wanted to have a show talking about how dire our situation is, because we have to act like this is an emergency. Some of us, I mean, many of us don't. We think of it as in a personal basis. The emergencies only happen with me. The emergencies only happen with my family. If I'm good, then we good. Yet we get murdered in the streets. We get murdered in the educational systems. Not literally, but figuratively. They're murdering our brilliant minds. In the judicial system. In the stats that I gave from the book White Fragility, if you think about that, this is how they dominate us. This is what actually racism is. Being in control and having power over a race, or how people depict a race. Like I say, they control Hollywood. Something that they were doing, I was watching a TV show, I believe last weekend or something, and they were talking about the attacks that America started having, like around 1980s, all the way up to present times on the Arab nations. When America started, the government started having conflicts with Iran, Iraq, all throughout the time, the 90s. They started movies, started mimicking those. By showing the Arabs as being all in the bad guys. Raiders of the Lost Ark, I believe, whatever those type of movies, and it's always someone with a turban on or something, like they're the bad guys, or these guys in Bruce Willis Die Hard. The criminals would seem like they were of some kind of Arab descent. You know, this is a game that Hollywood plays. At one point or another, they made it back when we were going to war with Japan and World War II and things like that. After that, the movies that were coming out in Hollywood, they showed the Asian people in a certain way, you know, that you couldn't trust them. And this is what they do in Hollywood to influence the minds of the people. So they would depict a certain people in a certain way, whether it's on cops, where they just showing them chasing black people 85% of the time, or they're reporting the news, and they talk, like I say, they talk about what news need to be shown. They're going to report the news when violent crimes is happening by all over with all types of people, but they concentrate, or they have more of violent crimes committed by black people. They have less TV coverage of the crimes committed on us by law enforcement. A lot of times when we see these incidents, we have to, by us having social media now, I don't believe that it's an increase in these incidents. I believe it's an increase in us seeing or knowing about these incidents, because they can't control what I share with somebody else in a different state and say this happened. They can't control how many shares I have, or that in a certain way they can control what we're able to see on social media, but they have a limited control. So we're able to expose more of what's happening. Then when there's smoke, there's fire. So sometimes if it's a riot or a protest, they have to cover it, and they have to cover why there's a riot and a protest happening somewhere. And this is what's making things more prevalent to us today, when these things have been happening all along. So going to the level of competency or incompetency, which you don't know, is the Peter principle. And this is what we have to realize. This makes things, it should make it more eager for us to want to learn and study history, to figure out how other groups have done things. I mean, our leaders are going to tell us to protest. They're going to tell us to boycott. The boycotts are going to die down. We should be in a constant boycott. Not boycott this company for just this day or boycott. It shouldn't even have to be a boycott. We should, on our own, support our own. Every other group does that. That comes to this country, every other group supports their own. Especially supporting their own over other groups. That's a natural thing, except for in the black community. This is where our leaders are falling short. This is what we needed to be educated on out of the cradle. You support your own. And it will be pushed back by our own on why I don't do it or why don't do it. I don't care why. Don't do it. But don't try to influence me to not do it. You're going to reap the benefits of our success when we start having success. And you're going to be on the bandwagon. There were people telling those people during the bus boycotts that started the civil rights movement. It was people that was telling them, these people, they not going to keep it up. It's some of us that was sitting there saying the same thing. Them Negroes ain't doing this. They not going to be able to keep it up because you're not doing it in your city. You was having to sit behind in the back of the bus yourself, had to get up for white people so that they could sit down yourself. Those type of things are still happening. They are at the front of the bus when it's driving our educational system. They're at the front of the bus when they're driving our economic system, the businesses. They're in the front of the bus. Those people that rode the front of the bus, those white people, and I'm speaking on individuals. You may not, you say, well, I'm not racist. I don't hate black people. It's not about you. It's not about what you hate. But are you riding the front of the bus? Are you riding in the back of the bus with us? Are you fighting that we have to? Riding in the back of the bus with us is not doing really no good. Are you fighting the system? No, you're benefiting from the system. Or if you're not personally benefiting, if you think you're not personally, you're benefiting from the system, whether you know it or not, but you're not doing anything to stop it. So, and my fight is not with you as an individual. My fight is with the system as it works and as it has been working. So when I'm sitting there with a white person, they want to discuss this thing like she was talking about right fragility. Those discussions are hard to have with them because they are not able to separate. They're thinking, no, I'm not racist, because they are controlled that word to make you think it's bigoted or it's prejudice, but it's control. It's privilege. You don't control how a cop approaches you. You don't control how they psychologically approach you, how nervous they are, or how comfortable they are. You don't control that from one white person to the next. The system controls that. This is why it's systemic. And we want to have a discussion about something that you have no control over. As an individual, you have no control over that. You can talk to me about it. I have no control over it. The particular citizens have no control over the system, who gets the privilege and who doesn't. You're not going to say, hey, you're not talking to me in a rough way that you would talk to a brown person or a black person. Why are you not doing that? No, you're going to get your ticket the way that they gave it to you, and you're going to be happy that you didn't have any more harassment from the police officer. This is systemic racism that you're a privilege of. Having white privilege is not you demanding a privilege. It's you having it without even you having to demand a privilege. This is what we have to understand. This is why the conversations about racism is even hard for us to have, because many of us don't understand the extent of what racism actually is. Like I said, to a point that they will be able to flip that word and say that, hey, they're racist. Hey, they're racist. No, they don't have control over anybody else. They can't give me a privilege over you. They're not controlling who you believe in or how your God looks. They're not controlling the Ten Commandments, how it's being broadcast on TV, who plays the parts in these movies, who play the bad guys. Sometimes we make movies, like the movie about Harriet, and I stated this on many occasions. I was disappointed because some of the little nuances that they tried to put into the movie was showing the black people being the most ruthless people trying to hunt her down. And what you're doing, or the reluctancy of the slave master, that we got to do this because we're in economic trouble and it's hurting our family, and it's not our fault because the father died. We need as many slaves. They try to make it a sympathetic thing, a reluctant thing. And then we don't really control our own movies. We make a movie that depicts them in a bad manner, or depicts the police officers in a bad manner. You'll see it very limited in theaters, if they make it to the theaters at all. Because this is part of the system. This is part of the systemic racism that we have to realize that we're dealing with. So when we make it to be movie directors and things like this, and you're one of the few black movie directors out there, I believe today there's 7% of blacks, and something like that, 4% black producers. When we get in those positions, we have to understand our responsibilities to our people. In whatever position you are in, you have to understand the responsibility that you have to our people. Even just being on social media, the things that we post that gives a negative perspective of our people, even the things that we say that give a negative perspective on our people, it is our responsibility to build up our people. All of these black people fighting in the neighborhood videos that's going viral. And I asked the brother, why are we even sharing stuff like this? What's entertaining about that? What you're doing is showing other people that believe that we are animals. Look how animalistic we are. Their reply is, well, they're going to believe it anyway. So what? You're going to help some of us believe it. That's another way. Anything that you have the power to promote something, project a positive image, project our own positive images. You can take that hashtag promote, project our own positive images, and put anything positive for black people that they have not been projecting as positive. This is some of the least things that we could do. We control our own media page and what we choose to disseminate on a small level. Positivity. The music we listen to, gangster music, all these things that they promoted, that they commandeered the rap game because it was too positive, because it was a way of teaching each other. Some of the things that started me to learning some of the names and some of the books and wanting to read was groups like Public Enemy, Pro Righteous Teachers, X-Clan, Boogie Down Productions, the people that I deem positive, that was saying, giving me names I never heard before. Talking about Stevie Biko and making me say, damn, who was that? Talking about Farrakhan, making me say, who was that? And it became a movement, but that movement got derailed because they controlled the industry. They took control of that industry. They started controlling what was on the radio. Even if we thought it was good for us, dance. Damn, we always could dance. We danced to anything. We danced, the 70s, we've been dancing. The 60s, we've been dancing. singing, and sometimes that education comes in there, and sometimes you have to stop dancing. If we went to school and all they did was play music and we dance, we'll be in a bad predicament, even worse predicament. But there's a time to learn. There's a time to discern what it is that's important at a time and what we need at a certain time. That's maturity as a people. What we should be watching on TV. We have to understand that they're giving us these things to feed us, to occupy our minds, to occupy the voids between us having to grind and work every day, then how you relax your mind and how you want to get away from the world. They give us, whether it's beverages, alcoholic beverages, drugs, music, drug-like entertainment that's doing nothing from your mind, that's stopping you from watching some positive documentaries about our history, our past, or building in our future. They're controlling that. You have to take control over that. And if you're doing it and your kids are doing it and you don't see a problem with them, you don't see a problem with yourself doing it, you're not going to see a problem with your children doing it. They're going to be on their tablets just taking up space and time and not building and not learning. And you're not going to have conversations with them. What did you learn today? What did you research today? Go do some type of research. Tell me something, research something on that tablet, that internet. Tell me something that you researched. Tell me what you learned today. This is the point that we should be in. But we say, oh, those kids, they just on their phone. They on their tablets. Well, those things have power. But you have to plug it in. The power is the person that's using it. You have to plug into their mind. Go ahead. You do your little entertainment things. Everyone needs a break. But also give them assignments to give you something and show you what they have learned and what they research and question them on things. Show them how easy it is to look up information. Ask them questions that they won't be able to answer and tell them to get the answer for that question. Look it up. There's a reward in learning. We can't rely on the school systems to teach us. We can't rely on broken parent education to teach us. We can't continue those cycles. These are the things that we have to eventually start to plan and have as goals for our people. And when we have these things as goals, then these are the things that will combat the situations that we find ourselves in this country. So I appreciate everyone showing up. Hopefully I start having some better shows for y'all. Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. Peace.
I have everything I need to proceed.